I used to work as a night janitor at St. Augustine High, a decaying public school on the edge of town that smelled like bleach, rust, and a little bit of history. The place had been built in the early 1950s and hadn't changed much since. The hallways were narrow, the tiles yellowed, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects overhead. I'd started the job after losing my position at a warehouse thinking it'd be easy. Clean floors, empty trash, clock out. But the first night I stepped into that school alone, I realized there was something wrong about the silence. It wasn't empty. It was heavy, like the air itself was listening. My shift started at 9 p.m. sharp. I'd clock in, grab my mop and cart, and make my rounds through the classrooms and hallways. The day students left behind gum wrappers, scribbled notes, and sometimes the faint smell of perfume. By 10, the building was mine. I liked that at first, the solitude, the rhythm of sweeping and mopping under the hum of the lights. But after a few weeks, things started happening that I couldn't explain. It started with the doors. They would open and close by themselves. At first, I thought it was air pressure from the old ventilation system. But it wasn't. I'd prop open a classroom door with a wedge, turn my back for a few seconds, and when I turned around, it would be shut tight. Sometimes I'd hear the handle click softly, like someone was inside holding it. Once I knocked just to see if maybe a student or teacher had stayed late. No answer. I opened the door anyway. The room was empty, but the faint smell of chalk dust and something sweet, like lilac perfume, hung in the air. I didn't think much of it then. I should have. There was a hallway in the east wing that nobody liked to clean. It led to the old science labs, sealed off years ago after a small electrical fire. The administration didn't bother renovating it, so it sat there, dark with peeling paint and a faint hum from old wiring. My supervisor told me to avoid it unless I had to mop near the entrance. One night, around 11:30, I was ahead of schedule and figured I'd finish early by getting that area done. When I pushed my cart near the double doors to the east wing, the smell hit me first. Burnt plastic, ozone, and something faintly metallic, like blood. I told myself it was just leftover fire damage. But when I opened the door, the air inside was colder. Not a little colder, freezing. My breath fogged in front of my face even though it was midsummer. I shone my flashlight down the hall, and that's when I saw her. She was standing at the far end of the corridor under a flickering light. A girl, maybe 16, in an old-fashioned school uniform that I'd never seen any of the current students wear. Her hair was dark and long, and her head was tilted slightly, like she was curious about me. I froze. I couldn't move. My flashlight flickered, and for half a second I thought she disappeared, but no, she was closer. 10 feet closer. The lights above her buzzed, then went dark completely. I dropped my mop and backed out of the hallway, slamming the double doors shut. When I turned the key in the lock, I could swear I heard soft footsteps on the other side, running toward me. I didn't go back there for a week. When I told my supervisor, he just shrugged and said, "Yeah, that wing's bad luck. Don't worry about it." I thought he was joking, but then he told me something that made my stomach drop. Back in the 1970s, a fire broke out in that same lab during a late-night experiment. A student had been working alone, unsupervised, and no one realized she was trapped inside until the next morning. They said she died of smoke inhalation near the door, trying to get out. After that, they sealed the wing. I tried to laugh it off, but the memory of that girl, those dark eyes staring at me, stayed. I started hearing things around the same time every night, right before midnight. Footsteps echoing down empty halls, lockers slamming when no one was there. The worst was the whispering. It wasn't clear words at first, just a low hum like someone talking behind a wall. I'd pause listening and it would stop. But if I moved again, I'd hear it following me, just out of reach. One night around 12:15, I was cleaning the gym when I heard something metallic dragging across the floor above me. The gym's upper level was the old science hall, yes, that hall. I ignored it, turned on the vacuum to drown out the sound. But then the gym lights flickered. The entire room dimmed for a few seconds and the air pressure dropped so suddenly my ears popped. I turned off the vacuum, waiting. That's when I heard the laughter. It was faint at first, coming through the vents. A girl's laugh, soft, airy, but wrong. It had no warmth to it, like it wasn't laughter at all, but an imitation of it. I froze, listening. It came again, closer this time, followed by the sound of bare feet running across the ceiling. The metal beams creaked. I grabbed my flashlight and ran out into the hallway, heart hammering. The sound followed, footsteps quick and light like she was right above me, keeping pace. I sprinted to the custodial office and slammed the door behind me. For a long minute I stood there holding my breath, staring at the door's window. Then slowly a shadow passed over it, a human shape. Someone or something was standing right outside. The doorknob rattled once, twice, then stopped. I didn't move until sunrise. The next morning, when the teachers started arriving, I acted like nothing happened. But I noticed something strange. On the gym floor near the center where I had been cleaning were small wet footprints, bare feet. They led from one end of the gym to the doors and stopped right where I had been standing when I first heard the laughter. I thought about quitting. God knows I should have. But rent was due and jobs were scarce. I convinced myself it was my imagination, stress, sleep deprivation. I tried wearing earbuds, blasting music while I worked, anything to drown out the silence. It helped for a while. Until one night I found the note. It was taped to my locker in the janitor's room, written on a yellowed piece of notebook paper. The handwriting was childish and messy. It said, "You saw me. Don't tell." I stood there for a long time, just staring at it. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I tore it off, threw it away, and tried to shake it off. But that night, when I went to mop the east hallway again, something had changed. The double doors were already open. I swear to you, I had left them locked. I checked them every single night since the first incident, but now they stood wide open. The darkness beyond them thick and cold like fog. My flashlight's beam barely cut through it. The air smelled of burnt wires again, and faintly, that same lilac perfume. I took one cautious step forward, gripping the mop handle like a weapon. My radio crackled on my belt, static hissing through it. Then through the noise a voice whispered my name. Not my last name, not "Hey Janitor," but my first name. A girl's voice. I ran. I didn't even think. I bolted down the hallway, cart clattering behind me. I didn't stop until I was outside in the parking lot, chest heaving. I looked up at the school windows, and there on the second floor I saw her. The same girl standing behind the glass, staring down at me. Her face was pale, her hair wet, like she'd just stepped out of the rain. But it wasn't raining. The next day I quit. No notice, no explanation. My supervisor didn't ask why. Maybe he already knew. Maybe everyone who worked that shift knew, and they just learned to ignore it. A few weeks later, I drove by the school at night out of morbid curiosity. All the windows were dark except one, the same one where I'd seen her. A faint figure stood there again, unmoving, watching. I turned my car around and never went back. Even now, years later, I still dream about that hallway. I still hear the sound of bare feet running across tile, the laughter echoing from nowhere. And sometimes when I wake up, my apartment smells faintly of lilacs. I got the janitor job at Hollow Creek Hospital in 2014. It was supposed to be temporary, just a few months while I looked for something better. The pay wasn't great, but it came with steady hours, and that was all I needed back then. Hollow Creek wasn't a big hospital. It was old, small, and half the building had been shut down years before due to budget issues. I didn't ask questions. I just mopped the floors, emptied the trash, and kept to myself. But there was one thing everyone told me my first week on the job. Never go down to the basement after midnight. At first I laughed. It sounded like a superstition, like something workers made up to haze the new guy. But every time I asked why, the other janitors just went quiet. One of the older guys, Pete, finally told me that the basement used to house the old psychiatric ward, back when Hollow Creek had more patients than beds. He said the hospital stopped using it decades ago after a fire, but for some reason the lights and electricity still work down there. If you hear anything, Pete told me, just keep walking. Don't answer it. That should have been enough of a warning. Most nights, I was assigned to clean the newer wings on the upper floors. Surgery, maternity, ER. Hospitals are eerie at night, even when you're not alone. The silence hums through the walls, broken only by distant beeps and the occasional muffled cough. The smell of antiseptic clings to everything, cold and sterile. By my second month, I'd gotten used to the strange rhythm of night shifts. Then, one Tuesday around 2 a.m., my supervisor radioed me to say there'd been a spill in the lower storage hall, right near the old basement stairs. The basement wasn't technically part of our route, but the main janitor on duty had gone home sick, so I had to cover it. I remember standing at the top of that stairwell staring down. The light at the bottom flickered like a dying candle. The air that drifted up felt wrong, thick, humid, and faintly metallic. I told myself it was just old pipes and bad circulation, I grabbed my flashlight, adjusted my gloves, and started down. The steps creaked with every move, echoing through the narrow concrete shaft. When I reached the bottom, the smell hit me harder. Rust, mildew, and something else, something sweet and rotten like spoiled fruit. I found the mop bucket someone had left near a puddle of water, the source of the spill. It looked like condensation leaking from a pipe overhead. I started cleaning, trying not to breathe too deep. But then I heard something that made me freeze. It was faint, distant but unmistakable. Someone crying. It sounded like a woman, her sobs echoing softly from deeper inside the basement. I turned off my mop wringer to listen. It wasn't the pipes and it wasn't the wind. It was human. I called out, "Hello? Security?" But there was no answer. Just that same muffled crying. Against my better judgment, I followed the sound, my flashlight cutting through the dark. The basement hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel, lined with rusted metal doors, some labeled records and supplies, laundry. But one door stood half open near the end, and the sound came from there. When I pushed it open, the crying stopped. The room beyond was pitch black except for a single light flickering from the ceiling. My flashlight beam caught something that made my skin crawl. A wheelchair, old and rusted, sitting in the center of the room. It faced the wall as if someone had been sitting there staring at the concrete. The air was freezing. My breath fogged out in front of me. Then I saw movement, a shadow passing along the far wall, quick and smooth, like it was sliding, not walking. I stepped back, the mop handle shaking in my grip. "Hello?" I said again, my voice barely a whisper. Something whispered back. I didn't hear words, just a breath, wet and close, like someone was right next to my ear. I spun around. No one was there. The door behind me slammed shut so hard it rattled the walls. I dropped my flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the floor and caught something in the corner. Bare feet. Someone was standing there. I couldn't see her face, but I saw her hospital gown. Gray, stained, and old. Her hands were at her sides, palms open like she didn't know where she was. My throat locked up. I stumbled backward, grabbed the door handle, and yanked it open with everything I had. I ran. I didn't stop until I was halfway up the stairs, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. When I finally reached the main level, I turned around to look. The door to the basement was still open. At the top of the stairs, I swear I saw a pale hand gripping the banister. I told security what I saw, but they brushed it off as a patient who'd wandered off. "We'll check it out," they said. But no one went down there that night. The next morning, I came in early to see if anyone had found anything. They hadn't. The security footage from the basement cameras had static during the time I was down there, just a few minutes of snowy distortion. I wanted to believe it was all in my head. Then a week later, I found the wheelchair. It was in a hallway upstairs, outside the maternity ward. Same model, same rust marks, same faint smell of mildew. Nobody knew how it got there. When I asked the head nurse, she said, "That model hasn't been used in this hospital for 30 years. They removed it, but the next night it was back in the same spot." That's when I started noticing her reflection. It began subtly, in the glass of the mop bucket, in the metal elevator doors, and the polished floors after I'd waxed them. A flicker of movement behind me, always too quick to focus on. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps echoing behind me, soft and dragging. Once, while cleaning the ER waiting area, I looked up and saw a reflection in the glass divider. A woman standing behind me, head tilted, hair hanging forward to cover her face. I spun around. The room was empty. The glass still held her faint outline for a split second longer before it faded. I stopped sleeping properly after that. Every night the same dream. A woman in a torn hospital gown standing at the foot of my bed whispering something I couldn't understand. Always the same rhythm, 4 words over and over. I woke up drenched in sweat, the smell of bleach thick in my nose. One night I decided to write the words down as soon as I woke, to see if I could make sense of them. What I wrote still makes no sense. Don't leave the light. A few days later I found out what it meant. It was a power outage. A storm knocked out half the building's electricity around 1:30 a.m. The generators kicked in for the ICU and ER, but the lower levels, storage, supply, and the basement, went dark. I was near the elevator when the lights flickered out. The emergency bulbs turned everything red and shadowy. I heard the distant hum of the generators, and beneath that, something else. Crying. Again. This time, it was closer. I tried to radio security, but the signal cut in and out. The crying grew louder, echoing from the stairwell leading down. The red lights pulsed in intervals, making the shadows move like something alive. My gut screamed at me to run, but part of me, some stupid, curious part, had to know. I took my flashlight and headed toward the stairs. Halfway down, the crying turned into laughter. A soft, high-pitched giggle that echoed unnaturally long. When I reached the bottom, my flashlight started flickering. I hit it and it came back on, just in time to see the wheelchair again sitting at the center of the hall. Facing me this time, I froze. I couldn't move. Then slowly it began to roll forward. The sound of its wheels screeching on the concrete filled the space. I backed up, shaking my head, whispering, "No, no, no," but it kept coming until it hit the bottom step. The front wheels stopped. The back ones spun. And then from behind it, I saw her crawling out of the dark. Her gown dragged behind her and her arms moved wrong. Too long, too stiff. She was whispering again, louder this time, the same rhythm from my dreams. "Don't leave the light." I ran. I didn't care where I was going. I sprinted up those stairs so fast I nearly tripped. The red lights overhead flickered faster as I reached the top. I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and didn't stop running until I was in the security office. The guards looked at me like I was crazy, but I refused to go back down. I quit that same week. A few months later, I saw an article online about Hollow Creek. They were finally demolishing the old sections of the hospital, including the basement. The piece mentioned something I hadn't known before, that decades ago during a fire in the psychiatric ward, several patients had been trapped when the doors locked automatically. Only one body was ever recovered, a woman in her 30s who had been restrained to a wheelchair. The picture that came with the article was grainy, but I recognized it immediately, the same wheelchair. Sometimes, when I drive by the lot where Hollow Creek used to stand, I still feel that same chill. The new building they put up there is sleek and modern, all glass and steel. But late at night, if you look through the lobby windows, you can still see the reflection of that old wheelchair sitting in the corner, waiting. I never planned to work at a school again. After what happened at my last job, I told myself I'd stick to warehouses or office buildings, somewhere with cameras, co-workers, and no memories hanging in the halls. But when the district offered me steady work as a night janitor at Ridgeway Middle, I took it. Bills don't wait for trauma to heal. It seemed like an easy gig, 5 nights a week, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., cleaning classrooms and hallways after everyone had gone home. What I didn't know, what nobody told me, was that Ridgeway had already been shut down once. The first time I drove up there, I thought I had the wrong place. The building was huge, older than I expected, sitting at the edge of a wooded area about 20 minutes outside town. Half the parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds. The main doors were chained, so we entered through a side entrance. The head custodian, a quiet guy named Frank, handed me a ring of keys and said, "You'll be on your own after midnight. The lights on the 3rd floor don't always work, but don't worry, nobody goes up there anyway." "Why not?" I asked. He looked at me for a second too long, then said, "It's closed for maintenance," and walked away. That first week, everything felt normal enough. I'd clock in, walk through the empty halls, mop, sweep, wipe desks. The building made plenty of noise, old pipes, loose tiles, the hum of fluorescent lights, but I'd been in worse places. My job was simple, clean, and keep moving. Still, I couldn't shake a strange feeling that the school didn't want me there. It wasn't fear exactly, more like the place was aware of me. Every time I entered a classroom, I'd hear faint echoes, chairs shifting, pages turning, footsteps down the hall. I told myself it was air currents or my imagination. Until the night I found the attendance sheet. It was lying on a desk in room 3B, the one closest to the stairwell that led to the 3rd floor. The paper was yellowed, like it had been sitting there for years. But what caught my eye were the dates, April 1998. Every line was filled with a name, all written neatly in pencil. Except one, the last one, which had been smudged out completely. The teacher's signature at the bottom was barely legible, but I could make out the words, "Lockdown Drill." I didn't think much of it until I noticed something else. A faint brown stain along the top edge. It looked like old coffee or maybe rust, but when I turned the paper over, I realized it was a fingerprint. Small, faded, but definitely a fingerprint. I put the sheet back and told myself to forget it. That same night, the PA system turned on by itself. I was mopping the cafeteria when the speakers above me crackled to life. Static hissed for a few seconds, followed by a soft, distant voice. "Attention, students. Please remain in your classrooms." I froze. The sound was faint but clear, like an old recording. "This is a lockdown. Teachers, secure your doors. Do not open them until further notice." Then the static cut out. I stared up at the speaker, waiting for another announcement. None came. I radioed Frank, but he didn't answer. I figured maybe someone was testing the old system and didn't tell me. But then 30 minutes later, it came on again. Same message, same calm voice, only this time at the end there was something else. A whisper, barely audible. Like someone close to the mic breathing, then a word stretched thin by static. Hide. That was the night I started noticing the shadows. They didn't move like normal shadows. They lagged behind. If I walked through a hallway, my reflection in the glass would move slightly slower, as if it was hesitating. Sometimes when I turned off the lights in a room, I'd catch the silhouette of someone else in the doorway. But when I looked, there was no one there. The worst was the third floor. One night after finishing my rounds early, I decided to check it out. The stairwell to the third floor was blocked by yellow tape and a sign that said condemned. I don't know why, but I wanted to see what was up there. Maybe I was tired of being scared of every sound. Maybe I just needed to prove to myself that it was just an old building. I cut the tape and went up. The air grew colder with every step. The lights buzzed weakly, flickering in long intervals that left me in darkness for seconds at a time. When I reached the top, I found a hallway lined with lockers that looked decades older than the ones downstairs. Some were dented, others covered in faded stickers and scratches. The smell was thick, dust, mold, and something faintly metallic. I tried one of the classroom doors. It opened easily, hinges groaning. Inside, desks sat neatly arranged as if the class had been dismissed just yesterday. Textbooks were stacked along the windowsill. On the chalkboard, written in white chalk, were the words, "We stayed quiet." I stepped closer. The handwriting looked rushed, uneven. I reached out to touch the chalkboard, and that's when the door behind me slammed shut. The sound was so loud I jumped. I turned around and grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't move. It was locked from the outside. My flashlight flickered again. I felt the air change, the same drop in pressure I'd felt before storms, only heavier, suffocating. Then from behind the teacher's desk came the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, I raised my flashlight. The beam caught a figure crouched behind the desk. Small, maybe a child. "Hey," I said, forcing my voice steady, "are you hurt? You're not supposed to be here." The figure didn't move. I took a step closer. My flashlight flickered, then went out completely. I hit it a few times, and when it came back on, the desk was empty. But on the wall behind it, new words had appeared on the chalkboard, scrawled over the old ones. I don't know how they got there, but they were fresh, the dust still floating in the air. "We never left." The doorknob clicked. I turned just in time to see it twist on its own. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the dark hallway beyond. I didn't hesitate, I ran. When I reached the stairwell, I nearly tripped. Something was on the steps. A backpack. Old, faded, with a small name tag on the front. S. Rivera. It looked like it had been sitting there for decades. I grabbed it without thinking and bolted down to the second floor. I didn't stop running until I reached the janitor's office, slammed the door shut, and locked it. I sat there for what felt like an hour, heart pounding, staring at the backpack. Eventually, I opened it. Inside were school papers, a pencil case, and a small Polaroid photo. It showed a classroom, room 3B, the same one where I'd found the old attendance sheet. But in the photo, the kids were all standing in a line, smiling. Every face was clear except one, the child on the far left. Their face had been burned out completely, like the picture had been exposed to flame. I didn't sleep that morning. I told Frank about what happened, but he looked away, muttering something like, "You weren't supposed to go up there." When I pressed him, he finally told me the story. In April 1998, Ridgeway had gone into a real lockdown. A former teacher had come back to the school with a gun. He took a class of 6th graders hostage in room 3B. Nobody knows exactly what happened inside, but by the time police broke in, everyone was dead. Teacher, students, all of them. The building was shut down for over a decade after that. When they reopened it, they sealed the third floor entirely, hoping to leave the past behind. But the staff still heard things. The PA turning on by itself, lockers slamming at night, footsteps in empty halls. They said the intercom played the lockdown message on the anniversary every year, no matter how many times they replaced the system. I quit the next morning, but even that didn't end it. 2 nights after I left, I got a call from Frank. His voice was shaky. He said the alarms had gone off again. When security checked the cameras, they saw movement on the 3rd floor. A classroom door opening and closing by itself. He said they heard the PA turn on one more time. The same voice. The same announcement. Only this time at the end it didn't say hide, it said my name. I thought he was joking. Until he sent me the audio file he'd recorded with his phone. I still have it. It's only 20 seconds long. The voice is warped and static-filled, but you can make out the words, "Attention students, please remain in your classrooms. This is a lockdown. Teachers, secure your doors. Do not open them until further notice." Then there's a pause, a hiss of static, and faintly, almost inaudible, someone whispering my full name, drawn out, breathless, as if from right beside the mic. I moved 2 towns over after that. Took a job cleaning offices. Normal hours, normal lights, people always around. But sometimes when I'm working late, I'll hear it again just for a second. The faint buzz of an intercom coming to life. And a voice calm and distant saying, "Please remain in your classrooms." When I look up, every clock in the building always reads the same time. April 7th, 11:42 p.m. The time the lockdown at Ridgeway began. And no matter where I go, I swear I can still hear it. Children's footsteps in the hall, desks creaking, and the faint rustle of papers, like a classroom full of students who never went home.